The Grand Gallery. The Grand Gallery continues the slope of the ascending passage, but is 8.6 meters high and 46.68 meters long. At the base, it is 2.06 meters wide, but after 2.29 meters. The blocks of stone in the wall are propelled inward by 7.6 centimeters on each side. There are 7 of these steps, so at the top, the Grand Gallery is only 1.04 meters wide. It is roofed by slabs of stone laid at a slightly steeper angle than the floor of the gallery, so that each stone fits into a slot cut into the top of the gallery like the teeth of a ratchet. The purpose was to have each block supported by the wall of the gallery rather than resting on the block beneath it, in order to prevent cumulative pressure. At the upper end of the gallery of the right-hand side, there is a hole near the roof that opens into a short tunnel by which access can be gained to the lowest of the relieving chambers. The other relieving chambers were discovered in 1837 to 1838 by Colonel Howard Weiss and J.S. Perrin, who dug tunnels upward using blasting powder. The floor of the Grand Gallery consists of a shelf or step on either side, 51 centimeters wide, leaving a lower ramp 1.04 meters wide between them. The shelves, there are 54 slots, 27 on each side, matched by vertical and horizontal slots in the walls of the gallery. These form a cross shape that rises out of the slots in the shelf. The purpose of these slots is not known, but the central gutter in the floor of the gallery, which is the same width as the ascending passage, has led to speculation that the blocking stones were stored in the Grand Gallery and the slots held wooden beams to restrain them from sliding down the passage. This in turn has led to the proposal that originally many more than 3 blocking stones were intended to completely fill the ascending passage. At the top of the Grand Gallery, there is a step given into a horizontal passage, some meters long and approximately 0.02 meters in height and width, in which can be detected 4 slots, 3 of which were probably intended to hold granite portcullises. Fragments of granite found by Petrie in the descending passage may have come from these now vanished doors. In 2017, scientists from the Scan Pyramids project discovered a large cavity above the Grand Gallery using muon radiography that can detect cosmic rays. Its length is at least 30 meters, 98 feet, and its cross-section is similar to that of the Grand Gallery. It has detected using 3 different technologies: nuclear emulsion films, scintillator otoscopes, and gas detector. The purpose of the cavity is not known and it is not accessible, but according to Zani Hawass, it may have been a gap used in the construction of the Grand Gallery. The Japanese research team disputes this, however, saying that the huge void is completely different from the construction spaces previously identified. King's Chamber. The King's Chamber is 20 cubits or 10.47 meters from east to west and 10 cubits or 5.23 meters from north to south, and it has a flat roof, 11 cubits and 5 digits or 5.852 meters above the floor. Above the floor there are 2 narrow shafts in the north and south walls. One is now filled by an extractor fan in an attempt to circulate air inside of the pyramid. The purpose of these shafts is not clear. They appear to be aligned towards stars or areas of the northern and southern skies. Yet one of them follows a dogleg course through the Mansory, indicating no intention to directly sight stars through them. They were long believed by Egyptologists to be air shafts for ventilation, but this idea has now been widely abandoned in favor of the shafts serving a ritualistic purpose associated with the ascension of the king's spirit to the heavens. The king's chamber is entirely faced with granite above the roof, which is formed of 9 slabs of stone weighing in total about 400 tons. 5 compartments are known as relieving chambers. The first 4, like the king's chamber, have flat roofs formed by the floor of the chamber above, but the final chamber has a pointed roof. Weiss suspected the presence of the upper chambers when he found that he could push along the reed through a crack in the ceiling of the first chamber. From lower to upper, the chambers are known as Daveson's chamber, Wellington's chamber, Nelson's chamber, Lady Arbuthnot's chamber, and Campbell's chamber. It is believed that the compartments were intended as safeguards to the king's chamber from the possibility of a roof collapsing under the weight of the stone above the chamber. As the chambers were not intended to be seen, they were not finished in any way, and a few of the stones still retained mason's marks painted on them. One of the stones in Campbell's chamber bears a mark, apparently a name of a work gang. The only object in the king's chamber is a rectangular granite sarcophagus, one corner of which is broken. The sarcophagus is slightly larger than the ascending passage, which indicates that it must have been placed in the chamber before the roof was put in place. Unlike the fine masonry of the walls of the chamber, the sarcophagus is roughly finished, with saw marks visible in several places. This is in contrast with the finely finished and decorated sarcophagi found in other pyramids of the same period. Petrie suggested that such sarcophagus was intended but was lost in the river on the way north from Aswan, and a hurriedly made replacement was used instead. Modern entrance. Today, tourists enter the Great Pyramid via the Robbers' Tunnel, a tunnel purportedly created around AD 820 by Caliph al-Mahmud workman using a battering ram. The tunnel is cut straight through the mansarde of the pyramid for approximately 27 meters, then turns sharply to the left to encounter the blocking stones in the ascending passage. It is believed that their efforts dislodged the stone fitted in the ceiling of the descending passage to hide the entrance to the ascending passage, and it was the noise of that stone falling and then sliding down the descending passage which alerted them to the need to turn left. Unable to remove these stones, however, the workmen tunneled up beside them through the softer limestone of the pyramid until they reached the ascending passage, which it is possible to enter the descending passage from this point, but access is usually forbidden. Pyramid Complex. The Great Pyramid is surrounded by a complex of several buildings including small pyramids. The Pyramid Temple, which stood on the east side of the pyramid and measured 52.2 meters north to south and 40 meters east to west, has almost entirely disappeared apart from the black basalt paving. There are only a few remnants of the causeway which linked the pyramid with the valley and the Valley Temple. The Valley Temple is buried beneath the village of Naslet el Zaman. Basalt paving and limestone walls have been found, but the site has not been excavated. The basalt blocks show clear evidence of having been cut with some kind of saw, with an estimated cutting blade of 15 feet in length, capable of cutting at a rate of 1.5 inches per minute. John Romer suggests that this super saw may have had copper teeth and weighed up to 300 pounds. He theorizes that such a saw could have been attached to a wooden trestle and possibly used in conjunction with vegetable oil, cutting sand, and emery or pounded quartz to cut the blocks, which would have required the labor of at least a dozen men to operate. On the south side are the subsidiary pyramids, popularly known as the Queen's Pyramids. 3 remain, standing to nearly full height, but the 4th was so ruined that its existence was not suspected until the recent discovery of the first course of stones and the remains of the capstone. Hidden beneath the paving around the pyramids was the tomb of Queen Hetepheres I, sister wife of Sneferu and mother of Khufu, discovered by accident by the Resner expedition. The burial was intact, though the carefully sealed coffin proved to be empty. The Giza Pyramid Complex, which includes among the other structures the pyramids of Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, is surrounded by a Cyclopean stone wall, the Wall of the Crow. Mark Lenher has discovered a workers' town outside of the wall, otherwise known as the Lost City, dated by pottery styles, seal impressions, and stratigraphy to have been constructed and occupied sometime during the reigns of Khafre 2520 to 2594 BC and Menkaure 2490 to 2472 BC. Recent discoveries by Mark Lenner and his team at the town and nearby, including what appears to have been a thriving port, suggest the town and associated living quarters consisting of barracks called galleries may have not been for the pyramid's workers after all, but rather for the soldiers and sailors who utilized the port. In light of this new discovery as to where the pyramid workers may have lived, Lenher now suggests the alternative possibility they may have camped on the ramps he believes were used to construct the pyramids, or possibly at nearby quarries. In the early 1970s, the Australian archaeologist Carl Cromer excavated a mound in the South Field Plateau. This mound contained artifacts including mud brick seals of Khufu, which he identified with an artisan's settlement. Mud brick buildings just south of Khufu's Valley Temple contained mud ceilings of Khufu and have been suggested to be a settlement serving the cult of Khufu after his death. A workers' cemetery, used at least between Khufu's reign and the end of the 5th dynasty, was discovered south of the Wall of the Crow by Zahi Hawass in 1990. Boats. There are 3 boat-shaped pits around the pyramid with a size and shape to have held complete boats, though so shallow that any superstructure, if there ever was one, must have been removed or disassembled. In May 1954, the Egyptian archaeologist Kamal el-Malak discovered a 4th pit, a long, narrow rectangle, still covered with slabs of stone weighing up to 15 tons. Inside were 1,224 pieces of wood, the longest 23 meters or 75 feet long, the shortest 10 centimeters. These were entrusted to a boat builder, Haj Ahmed Yusuf, who worked on how the pieces fit together. The entire process, including conservation and straightening of the warped wood, took 14 years. The result is a cedar wood boat, 43.6 meters long, or 143 feet long. Its timbers held together by ropes, which is currently housed in a special boat-shaped air-conditioned museum beside the pyramid. During the construction of this museum, which stands above the boat pit, a second sealed boat pit was discovered. It was deliberately left unopened until 2011, when excavation began on the boat. Looting. Although succeeding pyramids were smaller, pyramid building continued until the end of the Middle Kingdom. However, as authors Bryan and Hobbs claim, all the pyramids were robbed by the New Kingdom when the construction of royal tombs in a desert valley, now known as the Valley of the Kings, began. Joyce Tilsley states that the Great Pyramid itself is known to have been opened and emptied by the Middle Kingdom before the Arab Caliph Abdullah al-Mamun entered the pyramid around AD 820. I.E.S. Edwards discusses Strabo's mention. The pyramid, a little way up one side, has a stone that may be taken out, which being raised up there is a sloping passage to the foundations. Edwards suggested that the pyramid was entered by robbers after the end of the Old Kingdom and sealed and then reopened more than once until Strabo's door was added. He adds, if this highly speculative surmise is correct, it is also necessary to assume either that the existence of the door was forgotten or that the entrance was again blocked with facing stones in order to explain why al-Mamuns could not find the entrance. He also discusses a story told by Herodotus. Herodotus visited Egypt in the 5th century BC and recounts a story that he was told concerning vaults under the pyramid built on an island where the body of Cheops lies. Edwards notes that the pyramid had almost certainly been opened and its contents plundered long before the time of Herodotus, and that it might have been closed again during the 26th dynasty of Egypt when other monuments were restored. He suggested that the story told by Herodotus could have been the result of almost 2 centuries of telling and retelling by pyramid guides.
Thank you for listening to this podcast. Please look for the next episode soon, and please ensure to share this with your friends and family. And please like this content and subscribe as a sign of support and for me to continue to provide this type of content to more people like you. Lastly, if you wish to support this content further, please visit the links provided in this publication. Thank you.